What is up guys, Wolfgang here. So today I'm making a video on the Xbox Elite Series 2 Xbox controller. So let's get into it. So I've been using the Elite Series 2 controller for about a month and a half now. So well, I'm not gonna really try to hide that I've already opened this box and I've already thrown it into my storage. So let's get straight into the case. This video is not being paid for by Microsoft. This product was bought with my own money, and well, nobody is editing what my opinions are on this device. So now, let's quickly start with the case. Now the case is pretty nice. I definitely do enjoy them providing a case for a $130 controller. And well, it's definitely got a nice texture to it. It feels similar to the Sony WH-1000XM4 case, if you know that. But regardless, it's a hard shell, which means that your controller will be very well protected. And well, it's all round, has a nice zipper, and back here it has, well, somewhere to hang it off of, even though it's a bit too thick for that. And lastly, it has a pass-through for charging the controller. Now then, design-wise, I truly enjoy the controller itself. It is more of a black and silvery sort of a color scheme. Now some people will prefer more flashy color schemes, but me personally, this is the one I truly enjoy, so I'm really happy with it. On the grips area, there is more of a rubbery texture to it, which means that it really feels solid when you're grabbing it. It feels like you won't let go of it, and it won't slide in your hands either, which is great because it just feels secure in your hands. It's also a bit heavier than the normal controller, and well, it adds a bit to the experience as it feels a lot more serious and more firm in your hands. Although holding it in the air, so not resting your arms on your legs or on arm rests or on a table even, does become tiring faster. So make sure to be able to, rest your arms somewhere, that way it doesn't become a tiring experience or a workout. Now then, to be able to customize the controller and its inputs, you do have to connect it to a computer. And then once it's plugged in, it'll do a quick refresh and it'll find your device and identify it. And then you'll be able to configure it, as you can see here. Now, inside the configuration, you do have 3 presets, which you can toggle through using this button right here in the middle of the controller. And there is a 4th one, which deactivates all programmed keys and deactivates the paddles as well. So it's more of a default controller experience. That is, in case if that's what you want, or you're lending it to a friend who doesn't know how to use paddles, for example. With that, you can make it more of a normal experience for him. Now, to edit the controllers, you have a few buttons up here. So you can choose which slot you want to edit. And then there's the edit button, rename button, trash button, and copy. So you know what to do with the last 3. And with the edit, I do want to show you how customizable this controller is. Now, when I knew about this controller, I was really excited to be able to program keys to the paddles. Unfortunately, they don't have that much flexibility. Now, you can still program it to be any key on the controller, but you can't program it to a keyboard key, which is a bit unfortunate, as well some games do benefit from having a few more inputs even from a keyboard. So that is a bit unfortunate, but you can see on the screen that you still can map any button to any input that you want. Now you can also edit the sticks, so you can change how sensitive you want it to be. I use it more in a lineal motion, but you can adjust this curve that way. If you move it only slightly, it'll move barely, and if you move it a lot, it'll move extreme amounts, for example. And well, you can do that also with the right, and you can change which is your primary. And well, they do offer a few different presets. So for example, if we check aggressive, you can see that at the beginning it starts real quick, and then at the end it lowers off a bit, and so on and so forth. Now next up are the trigger adjustments, which is pretty nice. You can adjust how sensitive your triggers are in different points and different points of the trigger pull. Now this means that if you don't want to have to press the whole trigger to, for example, give your car the most amount of gas that it can have, or acceleration, or whatever you want to call it, you can adjust that to make it a lot shorter. Of course, I would personally recommend to just leave it as it is, but well, that's up to you, and well, you can adjust them individually as you want. Next up, you can control the vibration on the controller. As you can see on the screen, there are 4 different areas which you can control the vibration for. And well, that depends on your preference, how much vibration you want it to have. But I can definitely say that max vibration is extreme, as it gets to the point where you start to feel like your hands are asleep, if that's the way to say it. You know, when you start to feel static in your hands, that's kind of what it feels like. So I have it set pretty much to half strength on everything. And well, you can adjust it to as much as you want. Honestly, it's really great to have that option. And then next up, you can adjust the brightness of the Xbox logo light, button light, I guess, whatever it's called, which is a nice feature to have. For example, if you're playing in a really dark area, but at the same time, well, I guess, what's more disturbing, the light on your controller or the TV itself? So up to a certain point, it's not necessarily that useful, I'd say. But well, it could be to you. Perhaps the light gets a bit distracting in the dark, I don't know. And well, at least you can adjust it to whatever you want. So as far as customization goes on the app, that is what they offer. And so now we can go to the physical controller itself. So with the physical controller, you also get quite a lot of customizability. So, as you saw, you do have paddles on the back, and these are removable. So if you don't use them, you can take them off. As you can see, I've taken off the larger paddles, which are down here. And well, with these paddles, you can remove them if you don't use them, or leave them on if you do, or if you even just want to have it unassigned to just be able to click on while you're playing for the fun of it, because it is quite a satisfying click. You can leave them on, you can take them off however you want, and well, it's definitely a pretty good experience, and I enjoy the paddles, especially being able to remove them that easily. Now next up, here in the back, you may have seen that you have these sort of setting levers, I guess. I don't know really how to call it, but it has a few stops. And for those of you who have used different controllers in the past, probably know what this is. These are trigger stops. So basically, if you leave it up here at the top, it means that it won't stop your trigger and you have the full motion of it. But if you want less motion on it, you can leave it in the middle, and it cuts how much your controller goes down to. And then if you leave it at the bottom, which is the best for shooters in my opinion, it basically makes it I forgot what they call it. It's like a hairline trigger, I believe. And so basically all you do is you just touch it and it's basically clicked. So that's great to be able to, you know, pull the trigger quickly and then let it go quickly. Especially the letting go part of it is really useful. And so that's definitely a nice setting to have. Now then, going to the front of the controller, we still have some more customization available to us. So you can switch out the D-pad from this roundish version to a more normal D-pad. Not the easiest to remove from the case, but it is an option to you if you prefer the normal style. I personally do like to give this other one a shot. Although the games I play normally don't use the D-pad as much, so I haven't really tried it out that much, but I think it's a nice feature to be able to test out. And now, my probably favorite part of this controller is being able to switch out the analog sticks. So currently I'm using a short version with some grippiness on the sides for the right analog stick, and for the left I'm using I believe you would call it convex stick, which means that the bulge goes outwards, let's say, and then on normal controllers it goes inwards, if you can see that. So what does it offer? Realistically, not much, but I really enjoy having the different experience. I prefer it. I kind of like it, but the nice thing about this controller is if you decide you don't like it as much and you prefer the normal analog sticks, you can just boom, and you got a normal analog stick here for your movement analog stick. And then, well, if when you're playing, for example, a shooter and you find that the normal ones and even the shorter grippy one is just too annoying for shooters, well, they do offer you a extremely tall version of the grippy one. So you can put it in there, and as you can see, it protrudes quite a lot. And so for shooters, especially when sniping, it's pretty useful. Although I do have to say that sometimes it does feel like the movement on this feels a bit too soft, and you can definitely miscalculate how much it is. And they apparently thought about that as well. So they offer you this little tool right here in the middle, which kind of looks like a sim ejecting tool. So with this tool, you can adjust the tension on your analog sticks. If I'm able to insert it, there you go. So you have 3 different settings of resistance. So turning it the most to the left makes it really soft. Turning it the most to the right makes it, well, really hard, to say the least. And so pairing that with our really tall analog stick, it definitely feels much more natural for something like very precise work, something like sniping, which is really nice to have the option. But if you're not feeling it and you want to play, for example, let's say Multiverses, which is my most played game recently, I can switch to the shorter one, which first of all, you don't really use the right analog stick for Multiverses. And well, I don't prefer the smoother one for Multiverses. I prefer the grippy convex one or concave. I don't know, it sticks outwards. And so with that, I can quickly switch up how I prefer to use my controller, and I can map these to help me reach or do different moves. And well, all around, it is a really customizable controller, which I really enjoy. Now then, we've already seen all the customization that this controller has to offer. Let's switch to battery life. So you can see it as a positive or as a negative. It does not run on AA batteries. It runs on a rechargeable battery that's inside of it, and well, it seems pretty good until now. I've only owned this controller for about a month and a half, so I can't really say much about the battery life, except that since I received it, I have not charged it once, so that's definitely a positive. Now it does charge up a little bit when I connect it to my PC to edit the keys. How much does it charge? I really can't tell. I haven't really noticed it, but what I can say is that it just doesn't die. It hasn't died on me in this time that I've used it. Now, you do have 2 options to charge it. You can plug it in through USB-C directly, or it also has something similar to a wireless charger for phones, for example. You plug this into a USB-C port, and you can rest the controller on it, and it magnetically attaches where it has to. That way it starts to charge it. It's pretty nice. And well, they also thought about it when I showed you about the cable pass-through in the case. You can leave your controller in here. Let me just put this back where it belongs. You can leave the controller in here and then close it up, and back here you have the pass-through. That way you can charge it while it's in the case. If that's something you prefer, you can do that. If you don't, you can forget about it and it doesn't matter. It's up to you. And almost forgot to mention, the case itself does provide a little pouch up here on top, and they also give you a really long USB-A to USB-C cable, which is nice to have. I keep it in here in case I'll ever need it. But, well, the truth is I only use it with my PC, and I already have a pre-connected cable over here. So I haven't really used it, but it's definitely nice to have. Now, the only issue with this pouch is that sometimes it does interfere with closing the case. Right now it's fine, it'll close fine. But sometimes the cable, for example, will be in such an angle that it'll impact this analog stick, or it'll be on top of this analog stick, which creates a lot more separation between the case and the controller. So for example, it's still fine. But sometimes it happens, so keep it in mind whatever you put in this pouch, that it might interfere with closing. as well as if you use you leave the tall analog stick on the right stick, well, it'll be annoying. Like, it will still close, but you'll notice when you're closing it that it'll be clicking on the D-pad or clicking on the analog stick, which I guess for long-term durability might be a negative. I can't attest to that. I can't say anything about it as I haven't had it. So I haven't had it for that long. So that may vary. Now then, price-wise, this controller comes for $130. That's what I bought it for on Amazon. And well, for me personally, it's been worth it, but it depends on how much you appreciate tinkering and playing around with things. So I did want to quickly mention that this controller has had a pretty rough history. So in the earlier days, when this controller used a micro USB connection, which I was definitely not going to buy, it had battery or analog stick also quality control issues. So a lot of people had to, in the short term, return their controllers and get a new one. And some people even returned it, I believe, up to 4 times, and each time always had an issue with the analog sticks. So at the beginning it was a pretty rough start, to say the least. Now, in my experience, it's been perfect. That can mean that I received a golden sample. That can mean that they've fixed the quality control issues. I've seen a lot of people saying that their controller has worked perfectly from the start, which is a good thing. But, well, just keep that in mind when you're buying one, to definitely have some time to test it thoroughly to know that it's working perfectly. One thing I would like for the durability on this controller is that they use magnetic analog sticks, as they use the other kind, which can wear off after some time. I've seen some people open this controller up to switch them out, but well, it's definitely not a nice thing to do, especially as there's no visible screw holes. So I can assume that the controller won't look as nice once you finish doing that process. So it's something to keep in mind. Almost forgot to mention, I will be giving away an Xbox Game Pass key for 1 month for a subscriber that leaves a comment on the video. So just leave a like on the video, hit subscribe, leave a comment down below, and include your Twitter handle so I can get in contact with you directly. Do not trust in spam bots, even though I have not seen one, but just keep that in mind. And well, I'll be contacting you via Twitter. So, as a conclusion, is this controller worth it? Well, it truly just does depend on if you enjoy tinkering with stuff or not. You may have seen throughout the video that I've been removing the analog sticks and putting them back in. I really enjoy stuff like that. Being able to, oh, I don't want this D-pad, let's switch it out. Oh, I don't want this analog stick, let's make it more longer, shorter, smoother, or tighter. Truth is, I really enjoy doing that kind of stuff. Being able to adjust the trigger stops, being able to adjust the paddles to move them between themselves, or to remove them, to reassign them to something else. I really enjoy doing that stuff, which makes this controller really worth it to me. I've really enjoyed the experience and having more of a premium controller. But is it worth it over a older style controller? Now, I believe this is for the Xbox One, if I'm not mistaken. I've had this controller for quite a long time, and I haven't bought and this was a cousin's Xbox controller. I actually stole it from him. Don't say anything. But, well, this controller has worked really well, I gotta be honest. Now, the only thing that's happened to it is that this analog stick's rubber part is starting to fall off. But, well, everything else is working perfectly. It does run on the AA batteries. And, well, this thing had the charge pack, but it did die before I got it, which means that I can only use it plugged in, which, well, it's fine, I guess, but definitely not the best. And well, it does use micro USB. So, if you're a rage quitter and you throw your controller, please don't buy this. You can just stick with this. Or even if you don't really mind the experience that they give you and you don't really like to tinker with stuff. For example, I open my computer at least once a week just to, see if there's anything else I can improve on it. Basically, what I want to say is, If you're not going to play around with the controller, don't buy it. If you will, this is going to be awesome for you. It will not make you better in games, or if it does, it'll be something like 5%, even though it doesn't really count as anything. But what I mean to say is that it won't make you that much better in games, but you will enjoy using the experience of this controller. So, for me, it was definitely worth it. Thank you very much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button and hit the subscribe button, that way you don't miss out when I release a new video. And hit the bell icon so you get notified of that. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Have a great day.